Hello there folks, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, a place where I discuss different topics about spirituality, introspection, dream interpretation and many other topics. Not to forget also game analysis from time to time. If you are a developer or designer and work alone or with others towards a particular video game or a movie, and you're interested in someone to conduct some analysis and provide some feedback, feel free to send me a means to play that or experience the project so that I may help you in return. Now, all this being said, this video will focus on the topic of religion, a topic which, well, I'm not interested in covering too much because religion doesn't have much importance to me, but, well, especially when people react so easily, and it's like so many people become furious when you even pronounce certain things. It's the fluffy syndrome, that the way that I call it. Like everyone is a special snowflake apparently, and society seems to revel in supporting such a thing. Now, religions have existed uh, ever since we know ourselves. Well, probably not as much, but humanity, as early as it discovered the sense of consciousness, okay, having those ideas, those first feels that there is definitely something beyond that which we basically are. And as we started to become slowly and surely more and more conscious of our own feelings and emotions, well, the point was that humans needed to believe in something, and the human mind is a huge machine, huge manufactorum, one can say. And, well, the way I call it is an engine of creation, right? It can only stop when one perishes, right? But people fantasize about being capable of stopping their own mind. But you cannot stop the mind. The point is, it can only and only and only create. Now, it can only create based on what one feeds it with, and feeding the mind is done both, let's say, magnetically, based on what you perceive, right? The vibration of things around you, manifestations that happened before, right? They have reverberations, and even if you get in a certain area 500 years later, some reverberations may still be there, and, well, depending on how open or closed you are, or how ignorant or conscious you are, some of those may actually end up affecting you, right? And there is also the visual feeding, which is usually the best, the fastest way, depending on what we see. The mind can also be fed with hearing, right? What other people tell us, what we hear, right? And how ourselves develop is also based on sounds, right? When you hear a certain sound, you already have at least one identification with it, and that's how reactions occur. Now, in time, the problem was that trying this aspect of control on the mind has definitely failed everyone, because the mind cannot be controlled. The more one tries to control the mind, the problem is, well, the more you're gonna fail. And of course, many people may actually give up easily, and they will simply embrace the comfort that the unconsciousness gives, right? The aspect of subconsciousness, and, well, living in ignorance, because the mind only provides comfort to those who feed it the most, right? Because once your mind is full with all the sorts of things and ideas, and as long as it is full, right, of things and the such. Now, the point is, as you progress in this direction, you let the mind create more and more chaos inside. Some people perceive this as a sort of, comfort in a way, because it distracts them from a lot of things. Now, of course, humans have to believe in something, and there's always a typical step in the evolution of consciousness in which one perceives the idea that there has to be something greater than them. Of course, we haven't created this world ourselves, right? We may have built a few blocks and the such, but everything is just, you know, um, Everything is just ideas, okay, that crossed our minds, adaptation, and resources that belong to the planet, right? This planet and the universe themselves, they were created by forces far superior than us. And, well, the point is, as those forces manifest, well, life simply developed in each and every nook and cranny, because there is technically no place in the world where there wouldn't be any grace, right? And now the point is, humanity would believe, honestly, and from an ignorant standpoint, and also slightly narcissistic, well, actually very narcissistic, people have ended up creating, monotheist religions in which, the ruler is always a male god, right? They might be older, they might be younger, but they are simply timeless, okay? Because the reason why you create a timeless god is not because you would acknowledge, okay, the fact that something is beyond you, okay, beyond your lifespan. That requires a whole level of consciousness, not just the level of, logic mind, okay, the logics of the mind. Now the point is, the reason why unconscious people, right, ignorant people want, to portray that is because they also want to share that immortality, okay? Because when people dive more and more deep into narcissistic traits, the more death appears as a kind of a very threatening thing, because when people dive into the, well, let's say, plethora of aspects that narcissistic tendencies are, the more people will end up creating ideas and illusions that they are some kind of god chosen, they are perfection. And, well, if you look at religion, for example Christianity, it actually says that we have been created in the name and looks of God. Now some other sources, okay, state that the Anunnaki, okay, have stated this, okay, when they created humans. And, well, many sources state that the Anunnaki have built the humans as kind of a slave race. Now I'm not too much into these because, well, sources may tell literally everything, and I'm not gonna rush into accepting, kind of anything that easily, unless I perceive it as coming from within, because we are all here to perceive our own truths. But in order to rule over narcissistic and or ignorant people, the idea was that a single entity that's almighty was far easier, okay, to create compared to a plethora of deities, okay. And in what's nowadays called pagan beliefs, okay, the point is that those deities were kind of nothing else than natural elements, okay, like feelings or certain natural manifestations in the physical realm. Well, feelings are also physical, but, well, much subtler. But when it comes to physical elements, you have different ideas, right? Like a deity of the earth, a deity of the air, right? A deity of the wind. You have, for example, Hecate in Greek, right? In the Greek pantheon, right? She was the goddess of crossroads. Probably, I don't know, maybe confusion, or deity representative of choices, because the Greek people were also great philosophers. And, well, when Christianity sprung, and, well, there are other monotheist religions, but I'm gonna pick on Christianity because it's kind of the one which ruined the whole world. Now, many people will say, why ruin? Well, the point is, the first and kind of biggest problem that Christianity had was that it stemmed from a desperation, okay? It stemmed from a need of control, because when you have a religion that worships only male energy, okay, female energy will always be suppressed. And when you suppress female energy, that's how you can easily control people, because female energy is about creation. When you suppress that, you simply become a conqueror. You become stuck into the male energy, which is nothing else than stability and structure, right? But stability and structure can easily become a prison. Why? Because, well, think about the medieval times. People have built fortresses, but, well, at the same time, those fortresses were also their tombs and, well, their prisons, right? Because it was very safe inside. And, well, if you look back in history, you can see that safety was, just like as it is now, the only thing that people sought after, right? And yes, in the older times it was much harder to survive, and especially in nature, but, you know, with very advanced fortresses, the point was there was no more any danger in wild animals, because there was a greater danger in, your human neighbor, right? And this has, until fortresses started being built, this has been enforced and reinforced through thousands of generations of pillaging, right? Because back in the older times, before fortresses, there were simply villages, okay? And, well, if the crops of a certain village don't go well, well, most likely the neighbors didn't, so, because you don't want to starve, you're going to invade your neighbor, right? And every action that you do will simply influence the collective consciousness, right? And the more ignorant people are, the more open they are. And of course, there are levels to consciousness and unconsciousness and ignorance, right? And they have to be experienced. Because one can only get enlightened if they are, ignorant, right? Because if you're already enlightened, well, there are other further steps, but, enlightenment is a progression from unconsciousness, right? From untruth into the truth of who and what you basically are, okay? Technically kind of dissolving everything you have accumulated in time, everything, every belief, every aspect, every idea that you simply have, acquired, right, throughout life. That you belong to a certain religion, to a certain country, even to a certain family, because family is, a group of people, right? Two people, a man and a woman, that bring you in this world, right? The womb of the mother is basically the first chakra that you pass into this world through, right? And that is why the child is all about survival. But unfortunately, thousands of generations before, and probably millions, if not billions of generations before, have simply lived constantly in survival. So nowadays it is still prevalent, because all these unconscious tendencies are very hard to remove, right? They take a long time to free from, because, well, they have a certain grasp, right? All the actions of our ancestors are also found inside our DNA, right? And, well, in each and every person, they may be more or less prevalent, but again, they are just urges, okay? They are just impulses. And impulses mean full unconsciousness, okay? Because when people are unconsciousness, they just live in reaction mode, right? Fight or flight, anger, and the lower vibes. Now, religion has made a very good job, especially Christianity, with this, because suppressing the female energy, there have been barely any creations, okay? And, the genius has been highly suppressed also, and everything that wasn't like that, right, it was basically an authoritarian regime. So imagine that around 500 years until, or 600 years till, Europeans started sailing across the world, there have been 600 years of repression and suppression, right? And, torturing and murdering of literally anyone that wasn't, supporting the, authoritarian dictatorship, right? Because, well, technically, religion ended up easily as something like that. Now, not all religions have to end up like that, but usually this world is kind of tainted with control, right? Because why would you need a god, right? When you can become simply aware of the fact, and aware, not just, you know, logically conscious, okay, of that. You become aware beyond logics that technically everything is divine, because everything has been created by a same source, okay? Well, better source, well, more like sources, but source kind of feels as if it is pinned somewhere. The point is, creation itself, okay, it's the way it was created will always be beyond the mind, because the mind represents three lower chakras, okay, in the body, the survival ones, okay, the three chakras that represent the physical body, and namely the survival chakras, right? The Muladhara, which is called the the physical survival, the Swadhisthana, which is more like the social survival of the individual, and also there is the third one, the Manipura, which is the survival of the self, right? Now these three aspects, okay, are just three of the 114 chakras that comprise life, okay. Once someone understands those 114 chakras, well, there is technically little that remains to be explored in this universe, okay, and one has attained, full life experience. And I don't know why people feel that through three chakras they can understand 114. It's never gonna happen. Everything that people nowadays call spiritual is beyond those three chakras that people kind of vibrate at, but they're not even balanced, okay? So that is why usually a lot of their energy will be outside of their body. That is why they will feel, unrooted, right? They won't be grounded, so therefore they will always be prone to fear. And what do religions and, well, present day society usually promote in order to control? Of course, fear, terror, and such, right? So Christianity, having been inflicting so much fear upon people, right, this is basically called a means of terror, right? So it is technically an aspect of terrorism, right? It's just that it became legalized, and of course it's not necessarily the best thing. Now, why would you need a god, right, when technically you can realize that everything is part of the divine? Well, technically you need a god because as an ignorant fuck, you need someone to solve your problems, right? It's always been so, and it will always be, irrespective of how many people this will piss off, right? Because people praise God as long as, things go well, but again, they swear God when things don't go well, right? And then they embrace that, you know, victim mentality. Why me, God, right? As if there were some kind of God chosen, and God plays with them the way they want. As I've been saying in previous videos, creation is not conscious, okay? If it were conscious, it would create patterns, it would create life in a certain shape, because awareness, okay, if it is awareness, if it is still unconsciously driven, okay, and it allows itself to be driven by impulses, right, it will follow in, subconscious aspects of hatred, of repulsion, and the such. So imagine a white person hating black people, right? One of those white supremacists. If they were given God powers, let's say that wouldn't necessarily eradicate black people, right? Let's say that they have God's powers, okay? Or let's say they would be creators, right? Do you think they would ever create black people, right? Because when consciousness, when people become tainted by certain things, right? They create their own karma, which, they don't like this, they don't like that, right? They will be so phased by that, right? So tainted by that, that they would simply disregard it, right? They would simply ignore it in a process of creation, or they would create all sorts of twisted forms of that, just as punishments or whatever means to justify the, twistedness that they have been growing and, well, they're kind of nurturing in their own mind. And then they wonder why their mind is such a mess. But, well, the moment people realize that their mind is a mess because they make it so, and there are so many things in the world to promote that and to easily allow you to make it even better, like, consumerism and all sorts of distractions, right? Pornography and ads and the such that make you always angry. The point is, everything that angers you controls you. So that is the simple psychology why you simply cannot forget the ads that you're constantly being bombarded by, because you instantly react to them, and when you react to something, right, you accept it. Ignorance means accepting things and, without using any discernment, right? Creation doesn't have discernment. It simply manifests itself in any way, shape, or form, right? So if creation doesn't have discernment, okay, doesn't also have a consciousness level. So if you think that God is aware of your existence, well, you're technically insane, because no creator is aware of what it creates, right? Because creators who create from unconsciousness, they just know that they have to flow energy through them, and it will let's say, it will gather creative potential. That creative potential turns into ideas, thoughts, emotions, or whatever, and then they can be concretized into something physical, right? Into something concrete. And, well, then it becomes a physical creation, right? Of course, physical creation has multiple levels, but let's stick to the specifically physical. So with Christianity, the point about it is it has rejected the feminine energy so much, and you can feel it even today with so many women afraid and ashamed, right, of their own sexuality. And it's always been the priests and the preachers of Christianity that supported the idea that it's shameful to think about sexuality, but well, religion is full of all those, homosexual examples, and, so many of these abuses like child abuse and the such, because children have always been abused. Why? Because they are batteries of energy, and again, they have little to no defense, right? And it's easy to simply induce a lot of trauma and fear into children because of the so-called adrenochrome, or whatever it is called, adrenochrome, I think, the hormone of fear, which produces a very powerful burst of reactions, okay? And these reactions are very powerful emotions that can be easily used to fuel demons and, entities created through rituals that, well, probably later on will be used to simply conquer enemies. Now, one character of mine in a book, okay, said, well, not a book, basically, in the video game that I want to create, and, well, in a novel that I wanted to once write, said, in order to simply conquer your enemy and pull them into slumber, you have to conquer them with your own demons, right? And you simply swarm them with your own demons, right? Because you want them to slumber, you don't want to rebel against you, you want them to simply accept you, right? And this is kind of what Christianity has been doing. Literally everywhere it spread, it also spread with it, right? Those 500-600 years of repression that were in Europe. And of course, many of the people simply settled in the places where they went, and of course, they had families in there. When you have sexual relationships, right, your karma, the ancestral karma, is also shared with that person, right? So the next generations that came, they also were tainted with the curse of Christianity, okay? And that's how the whole planet got tainted and ended up embracing ignorance, because it's easy to accept a thing that there is something out there that will do literally everything for you. And nowadays, guess what? We have the flow of distraction, or, well, people call it the law of attraction, which is kind of technically the same thing. There is something big out there, you no longer call it God, you call it the universe, and it's always gonna do literally everything about you. It's just that you have to dream about it, right? And many people preach that you have to dream and meditate. No, you don't have to dream fuck. You don't have to meditate anything. Meditation is good for its own purposes of calming the mind and receiving some inspiration or some certain ideas, yes. But in order to manifest, okay, and the way I see manifest, it sounds more like money fest to me. So if you want that money in a festival, right, if you want to fest with money, right, you have to simply work towards it. You don't need any meditation, you don't need anything. Yes, they might be useful a bit to calm the mind and, to find some inspiration, but, motivation is simply a bust. I made a video about that, and, well, people are gaining and, raising billions of dollars because people are chasing also many illusions like gods and, all of these ideas. People simply run away from the responsibilities that they have, and they need all sorts of distractions, right? And with all those distractions, they simply feel that they are not motivated. It's obvious that you don't feel motivated when your mind simply doesn't go in a single direction. It's like you're switching your the gear in all possible directions, right? And you're wondering why your car ain't moving very fast, right? And, well, that's how the mind is, right? So with all these distractions, and of course society is pumping even more and more fear and distractions and and terror and all sorts of ignorance propelling rituals and the such, the point is, unconscious people will simply remain in those lower vibrations, right? They will always expect someone to solve their problems because, well, they will almost instantly give up, right? Once people have turned their minds into a mess, they expect someone else to come into their life and, well, clean the mess that they have. That's why there are a lot of people who are people pleasers. But the problem with people pleasers is that most of the time they become that which they serve, right? The kind of people that they serve, right? Those people who just take, and take, because they finally realize what it is like to be, slavored by others. So the point is, they will simply embrace that, right? And then the problem is you don't tend to such people unless you teach them and they consciously accept to solve their problems. Because if you don't teach them how to solve their problems, you will solve theirs and then they will create more because they will want more attention, right? And that's technically a way that they vampirize upon your energy, and at the same time they're kind of mocking you because it's like, look at the dumb stupid, they're just constantly solving my problems. All I have to do is create another problem, right? And start crying. That's how you have, the what I call the damsel in distress syndrome, right? They always cry that, they're helpless, they can't do anything. And, well, I'm not speaking about women specifically, because men, a lot of them also do this, right? But, it's the typical damsel in distress trope that you find in, fairy tales and, in many cartoons in which the guy comes to save the helpless girl. But then, of course, feminism came and, a lot of characters, a lot of the female characters are now something like, don't worry, darling, I'll save myself. And this has been kind of the first fracture, okay? The first modern fracture, and it's been a great virus of the mind because, well, nowadays people all believe, especially women, seem to believe more into this, that they are independent. Okay, there is no such thing as independence in this world because you are correlated with this world, you exist with this world, you breathe the air of this world, you are influenced by the auras of the other people, of the thought forms that are literally everywhere around you, by the positive and negative energies in your room, at the workplace, and literally everywhere. Okay? You are always influenced by all sorts of things. Your skin breathes, okay? Your lungs breathe, okay? There is humidity around you and the skin needs that, okay? Especially in certain regions. And there are all sorts of things. You eat food, okay? You are not independent, okay? Even the dead people are not independent because the dead body is still influenced by all the same forces. It's just that it no longer has a driver inside, yes, but there are still forces influencing it. So there is no such thing as independence, okay? Social independence, right? You just want to be an ignorant fuck to live alone, separated from other people, so you can enjoy your own loneliness and then, well, cry that you are alone and crave for attention, right? And this is technically your karma, and you will simply, gravitate around that just like the earth gravitates around the sun, right? You're gonna lie yourself that nobody likes you, but at the same time you're never ever gonna make any step towards other people, right? Is religion good? Is religion bad? Well, this depends on how it is used. Christianity simply proved itself that it's been the most horrible thing ever created, and of course there are billions or thousands of millions, whatever, people who simply believe in it. It's the one and only thing. Well, as I've been saying, ancestral karma is hard to deal with, especially after thousands of, hundreds of generations, dozens, hundreds. Already it's difficult enough. And, couple it with the ignorance that humanity has lived in for so long, well, it is indeed difficult to a lot of people to simply dispel, right? Because, well, there are different levels to the idea of sensitivity towards life. And when people aren't sensitive to life, they need all sorts of distractions because the mind is like a black hole constantly pulling them in, right? And, well, they seek to control it, but, well, you cannot control the mind. So religion is only needed because, well, people need someone to solve their problems and they just look up at the sky asking God what will happen. Well, that's kind of being a psychiatry case because, well, if you ask things that don't exist, well, you're just a case. Simply put, this is how reality is. I'm not judging people. I can't judge people. It's just that this is how reality is. If people run away from reality, they become incompatible with life. So technically they are dying even faster. But at the same time, people want to be immortal, which is even another worse case of psychiatry, because you're making a mess out of yourself. You're enjoying your pain, and you also want to be immortal. Is like, how twisted and denaturated can that be, right? And at the same time, you're even capable of dying for that belief of yours, okay? You're willing to even kill for it, because if you're willing to die for something, you're literally willing to kill for it, right? That's how many people are, right? They will defend ideas like, well, the belief that they suck, right? That they are never good enough. They will support such ideas even with their life, right? This is the quality of people nowadays, of so many people nowadays, and people wonder why everything is literally falling apart. Well, things are falling apart because people are making, less and less effort to control their emotions, and they are simply embracing, ignorance, right? And ignorance means death, because technically you're ignoring your emotions, which are the only thing that make you feel alive, right? You're ignoring your thoughts, and technically you're accepting everything. And when you're surrounded by other ignorance, you're constantly sharing the vibrations that you're having, because ignorance means you're fully open, right? You're fully open, but at the same time, you're not using your discernment, right? And that is why you hate and you reject also many people that piss you off, but at the same time, those people are always in your own mind. That is the power of ignorance, right? And ignorance means just living unaware of the pains and unaccepting of the pains that you have, right? Because there are a lot of pains in you, and well, of course, you're gonna ignore yourself, and well, you suffer the consequences, because you're making a poison out of your mind, you're tasting it, and you're enjoying it, and well, you expect other people to suffer. Well, that's kind of twisted, ain't it? So, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, I'm not ever gonna say something is good, something is bad, okay? Everything has its own limits. Everything has, the idea of being a tool, okay? So how you make use of that tool, well, it is up to you and up to your own knowledge, right? But the point is, as I've been saying, right, and I'm gonna wrap the video with this, is that, religion is something very, very simple, okay? Religion is just a tool for ignorance, because once you become aware of the sensibilities and sensitivities of life, you simply become aware of the fact that, hey, everything is divine. Not just you, because you have been specifically created by God, okay? Or your neighbor, or whatever twisted ideas you would have. Life exists everywhere, even in inanimate objects. If you're not sensitive enough, well, that is your own problem. So God and religion only, well, relish in the idea of ignorance, because in the realm of ignorance everything is possible and everything is like free to perceive, right? There is no wall, there is no defense, you just accept literally everything, especially when you are running from your own self, because you're afraid of taking the responsibility to make yourself, to clean yourself of the mess you have accumulated, right? All this being said, you are loved and appreciated. Take care. Hopefully this was a bit eye-opening as usual. I don't want to create, hour-long seminars anymore. All this being said, take care. Ferenc Board signing out.